Halò, Cymara Hashiv and Jew is Misha Joseph. Hami an alaba, hami afudach an am pashlich. Ha pashlich gle va. Ha fur an Jew, agus ha fluch. Gle ur an Jew. Okay, so I'm just going to add a little bit more Gaelic with every one of these podcasts. We do a few more extra lines to see how much you remember. If you didn't understand any of that, then please go back and review our previous lessons. This podcast is loosely based on the lesson number 4 in previous podcasts. So we're doing a little revision and adding a little bit more as well. Okay, so I just want to say Ha u jansachach Gaelic. Ha u jansachach Gaelic. Ha podcast agam. Falcha gu podcast agam. This is my podcast and welcome. Falcha gu Gaelic le Joseph. And as always, if you're looking for a faster way of doing this and you want to run through everything, then go over to see Gaelic with Jason, which is another YouTube channel which I discovered recently. He's very good and he runs through everything quite quickly. This is the slow version of learning Gaelic because there's many people out there who are very intimidated by the sounds of the language, who want to take it a bit slow. So this podcast is for you. Now today we're going to talk about yes and no in Gaelic. So just to give you some examples, if I say ha morag snog, morag is nice, or ha morag more, for example, morag is big. Okay, let's stay with ha morag snog, morag is nice. Okay, if we want to say no, that's not right, we would say chan yel morag snog, chan yel morag snog. Okay, and that means morag is not nice. Some people say hanyel, I say chanyel, chanyel. Okay, so the example we have here today is ha morag snog, hanyel morag snog, or chanyel morag snog. Morag is not nice. Okay, so the examples we've been working with before, ha fuar, you would then change that to say hanyel. Hanyel fuar is not cold. Okay, hanyel fuar. If you want to say yes it is, or you want to say morag is nice, you simply say ha. Okay, so ha is the equivalent of yes because of course it starts off the sentence. Ha morag snog, ha. Yes, she is. Ha morag snog, hanyel morag snog, hanyel, or chanyel morag snog. Morag is not nice. Okay. So, for example, hami efidach an am pashlich, and I could say ha, and I also could say, for example, chaniel me an am pashlich. I'm not in Paisley. I'm not. Okay. So these are just a few examples. So hanyel, and I'll put this in the notes at the bottom. Okay, that's what you want to remember. Hanyel means no, and ha means yes. Okay, so there's many other ways, of course, you can use this, but if someone asks you a question, and we'll discuss how to ask questions in a little while in another lesson, because there's a few different ways of doing it, then these are the answers. Ha, or Chanel. Or if you just want to disagree with someone, yeah. If we talk about morag being nice, for example, ha morag snog. Ha efur, you can just simply say Chanel. Efur, no, it's not cold. It's not cold. Or you can say ha, yes, it is cold. Okay, so that's how to say yes and no. Okay, that's the present tense negative form and the present tense positive. Right, moving on, we want to talk about the preposition an, because it pops up often at the end of sentences. Okay, so if you go back to lesson 4 and just review that quickly, okay, what we said is that an can appear at the end of a sentence. It's almost like nowhere, from nowhere, and it doesn't really have a meaning in English except as some kind of affirmation. Like we would say, oh, it's cold, isn't it? So in Gaelic, they might say, oh, the day is cold in itself, isn't it? It's a cold day itself. It doesn't really have a translation in English, but it works. And it's not only just an they use. If the sentence is about people, it can change. But all I want to say at this moment is just to remind you of the way it can pop up. We went over this in lesson 4, and that is that in it itself can appear at the end of a word. Okay, end of a sentence. So, for example, ha an la brèagha, it's a nice day. An, yeah, ha la brèagha, an, which literally means is the day beautiful in itself. Yeah, so you sometimes see an popping up at the end just for emphasis, and it's really important that you know about that. The other use of an, of course, is simply in. Now, an actually pops up a lot because it gets mixed up with other prepositions to create a kind of third state, and you'll see that as we go on. But I just want to remind you that if you see an at the end of a sentence, it's usually going to mean in itself, and it changes in herself, in himself, etc. But we'll be coming across those much later. You don't need to worry about that right now. So, just to recap then, an at the end of a sentence is not anything to worry about. It's just some kind of affirmation, similar to saying isn't it in English, although that's not what it means. Now, the last thing I want to tell you about, of course, is a little bit more on lenition. We've been kind of building up to this, and that is to ask what causes lenition. Well, I've already told you that lenition is caused by a preceding word, sometimes a particle, sometimes a last letter of something. There's many examples, and lenition happens a lot. If you don't remember, lenition is when the letter H is put in after the first word. So I want to give you 2 examples right now. Okay, so a cat in Gaelic literally translates into her cat. Her cat. However, the masculine form would be a chat. So a cat, her cat, a chat, his cat. And we already spoke about possession in Gaelic. We only ever use my cat, his cat, her cat with things which are close to us, like my son, his son, etc. Because usually we would use at him or at her, which we've already spoken about in detail. You can go back and check. There's a whole list, I think, in podcast number, I don't know which one it was. I think this is number 14, so it must have been number 12 or 11. You'll see it in the notes anyway. So you can see that the word for both her and his in our notes is a. So a cat, her cat, a chat, his cat. And the only difference between them is that the word for his lenites. Okay, the next word. Okay, so his cat in English becomes a cat in Gaelic. Okay, but in the feminine, her cat, a cat in Gaelic, it doesn't. Let me just go over this again because I think this is a bit confusing. So in Gaelic, her cat and his cat are both translated with the very small word a. Okay, so a cat, her cats, a cat with an H, his cats. Okay, it's a little bit difficult to remember this, isn't it? But in Gaelic, lenition is very common, and actually, this is one way that you can work out if someone's Gaelic is good or not, because sometimes they don't use lenition properly. But there's many more words like this which are lenited because of the masculine. Okay, so for example, boat, a bàta, her boat. Yeah, his boat, a bhàta, because there's an H in there. Yeah, and the list goes on and on and on. Let's just go over that one more time. So a bàta, because it's got a little mark above it. In Irish it's called the fodda. I think in Scottish Gaelic it's called the strack. That little mark above the A means it's a little bit longer. Okay, so a bàta is her boat, a bhàta is his boat. And that's just another example of how lenition works with possessives. Okay, and that also explains why we have, after some names like Vari, Avari, for example. Right, I just want to go over this one more time to avoid any confusion. Okay, so what we said is a cat, her cat, a chat, his cat. Then we looked at boats. So a bàta is her boat, a bhàta is his boat. Okay, and the list goes on whereby the masculine, okay, is the masculine is what's causing the lenition in this case. That's not always the case. Lenition can be by another letter. So in the name Mhairie, for example, okay, in the name Mhairie, the feminine is what's being lenited. Okay, not the masculine. So it's nothing really to do with gender, but in this case, using a is his or her, it is. Wow, very, very difficult thing, isn't it? But this is just to remind you, okay, Halò amorag, Halò avorag, Halò Mhairie, Halò Vari, Halò, for example, Catriona would become Chatriona. Halò avorag, Avari. You see, it's very confusing. So, for example, if the woman introduces herself, it's going to be without lenition. But then if I say, Halò, it's the that causes the lenition in this case. We will keep getting over it, so don't worry. It's a little bit strange, isn't it, that in the example we gave with it's the masculine that's lenited, but with avari and avorag, it's the feminine that's lenited after the A. It does actually happen with masculine names as well, but in a different way. What happens is it gets lenited with the H put in, but it also has another letter put in towards the end. Okay, so the name does change a little bit, but we'll talk about that another time. Okay, so don't rely on the gender, rely on the rules. Okay, so if it's a, then if you see a lenition, you know it's referring to something masculine, if it's with a. If not, for example, it's a something. Halò, amorag, it's going to be avorag. Halò, avari, because you can't say a without the H. Okay, this is as clear as mud. So I'm going to end here, and I'd encourage you to go back to review lesson 4 as well as re-listening to this. Okay, thank you very much. Just a few more examples before we finish. Let's see now. Oh yes, so Amak would be her son, Avak would be his son. Okay. Aku would be her dog, and that becomes Achu, his dog. Achu, her dog. Aku, her dog, sorry. Achu, his dog. Right, that's all from me for now. So I wish you a wonderful day, and we'll talk again soon. Ci riendrasta.